right, we're gonna call the meeting to order. It is 2:35 p.m. on this May 14th, 2015. Okay, we're gonna start with roll call. Take a note that Mr. Weaver is here, just not here for me to call his meeting. He'll be back. Mr. Wilbur.
Present.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Mr. Windermere.
Present.
Ms. Heil. Here. Ms. Witt. Here. And I'm Ms. Morello, and I'm here, so we do have quorum. Good. Yeah. We showed up at once.
All AMATS meetings are public meetings, and the public is invited to come and testify. We have a business item. We'll have presentation by staff or a consultant, and then the committee will be given a chance to discuss the matter, and then at that point, the public will be invited to comment. If you are commenting, please make sure you state your name for the record so we have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. So first up is the approval of the agenda. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howe, seconded by Mr. Lindsay. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. And we have before us the minutes from the March 5th, 2015 meeting. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howe, seconded by Mr. Wilbur. Are there any opposed to the motion? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Let the record show that Mr. Morris joined us just in time, because we're up to our first business item. So item 5A, the operating agreement memo and addendum and contingency resolution.
So, Madam Chair, member of the committee, the last time we had this item, the TAC recommended that the policy committee release it for a 30-day public comment, and the policy committee did that at their last meeting. During the public comment period, we did not receive public comments. However, we did take this to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they have a resolution which is attached to the memo there. You can see in the last line of the memo is where I kind of summarized their thoughts on it, but the resolution basically suggests that the operating agreement division be rejected and the Planning and Zoning Commission remain as the AMATS Citizens Advisory Committee. They have some findings in there, 5 different findings for you to look at. Just because of how planning and zoning works, it's a little confusing that they have something that says it's rejected and then they have a line that says denied and then it's adopted. It just means they rejected the idea of the operating agreement revisions, so that's shown as denied, and then they adopted this resolution that shows the denied. So at the end of the day, they would suggest things stay status quo. And I guess as staff, my suggestion would be, since I get the sense that the policy committee and the technical committee were in favor of this, the original operating agreement revision, that I would suggest that we not support the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. So, but you're certainly free to do that. And I'm happy to answer further questions. There you have it. The last thing was the release for 30 days. This is the only comment that we had was in the form of a resolution from our Citizen Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Greg. Questions?
I have a comment. I didn't really hear exactly what you said there, Craig. Your recommendation is what with respect to what the policy committee and TAC said?
I guess my thought is that the technical committee seemed to support the idea of creating a separate citizen advisory committee. The policy committee didn't really say one way or the other, but they recommended that the operating agreement revision be released for 30 days. The reason that we originally suggested this idea of the creation of a separate citizen advisory committee has to do with some of the challenges that we had in taking items through the Planning and Zoning Commission and utilizing them as our citizen advisory committee. And that's why staff is continuing to suggest that we create our separate standalone citizen advisory committee, as opposed to what the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends. Part of it has to do with the amount of time that it takes, or has taken in the past to get plans or things through the Planning and Zoning Commission, the amount of time it takes to actually get on your agenda. And a lot of it has to do with not necessarily the current makeup of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but previous times, because we don't control the makeup of that Planning and Zoning Commission, we have oftentimes gone before them and not really received anything substantive out of them. I will say lately we have had better responses from them. That might have to do with the fact that we have a former AMATS senior planner as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which certainly helps. But other than that, our process hasn't been improved greatly by taking things before that body, and so that's why staff is still suggesting the creation of a separate standalone citizen advisory committee.
Yes, Mr. Morris.
Question for Frank. Can you remind us what we had a review, the NPO review, were there some recommendations about the Citizens Advisory Committee and the composition of the Citizen Advisory Committee?
Right, so in the middle of the memo that I have is the language from our previous certification review where it says there is typically a distinction between the function and makeup of a planning and zoning committee and a citizen advisory committee. AMATS should evaluate the makeup of the planning and zoning commission to determine if it represents the diverse makeup of Anchorage citizens and transportation stakeholders in the AMATS planning area. At the review that we just had, when they came up a few months ago, and again, these are preliminary findings, and they certainly haven't given us a final report or even a draft report, where we told them we are in the middle of the process of this operating agreement revision, which we create a separate standalone Citizen Advisory Committee. They supported that idea. They thought that was a very good idea. They communicated that to us verbally.
Jerry, did you have your question answered?
Well, yes, originally when we were on this track, to had a review by, the last review that we had, that's the question, the validity of the commission to some degree. I think, depending on, because they're subject to appointments, there's sometimes some merit to that, but I think, the commission tried to make the case when they had this before them that there was a good link between the land use and the transportation portion that I think is an important part of this function, that I'm not sure what value added we would get by creating this new entity. So I would be inclined to leave it with the Planning and Zoning Commission, would be my opinion.
Mr. Morris?
I mean, the Planning and Zoning Commission, even if they were not part of the Citizens Advisory Committee, they would still have a role through the AMATS process with review of entities and tips, I believe, they would have that opportunity.
I agree, I'm aware of that. I'm just saying, is there value added by creating another body? I mean, that's what, we all really have to decide here. Is there more value by creating this other body than we would be able to receive from the Planning and Zoning Commission acting in this capacity? They still are required to see all the components of the plan, so they'll be able to give their input while things are being developed in the citizen advisory portion. I think that's an earlier, that there may be some value added that they can do in an earlier process instead of simply looking at the product that comes out of the process. It can be structured many different ways. Some communities, obviously, as Craig has indicated, don't even have citizen advisory committees. It's probably not advisable not to have a citizen advisory committee. So I think this commission, at least an hour ago, when I met with them, they felt that they have improved and that they can have some value added to the process. So it's all a question of, will they continue to have that commitment to the process?
Mr. Wilbur actually has, so,
Actually, Ken asked part of it. I think the reason that we got to, I believe, this situation is just the lack of, or the additional amount of time that's required for our TIP and our plan to go through. I suspect for, at least for the plan, if the transportation plan, we want that to be an element of our comp plan. Planning and Zoning Commission has a code requirement to actually do that. You know, it's the TIP, the work program, and those other efforts that they're tasked with. And, I mean, being on this committee and having deadlines and challenging those things and adding 6 to 8 weeks into that process that we really have no control over and then get bumped, I don't have a sense in the past there's been some lack of appreciation of putting us in that situation. The downside is there's no guarantee that a new CAC would get us done any faster. I also don't like the idea of creating another agency review process that might be that has to happen before the Planning and Zoning Commission that we're required to do it. You know, even if the feds think it's a good idea, I think there's probably the reason the Planning and Zoning Commission, the number one reason I think Planning and Zoning Commission works well is their connection to land use. The transportation decisions we make and the land use decisions they are aware of and make, I mean, that connection will always have to be there. So, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's a policy call whether the policy committee wants to create another or different hurdle. But I think if we make this change, I do believe we're still going to be obligated under municipal code. We want that to be an element of the comp plan to go to Planning and Zoning. They could review the capital improvement program. Planning and Zoning Commission under code is required to see the CIP and make recommendations to planning. They could do that with the TIP. It's just whether or not they would require it. At the end of the day, whoever's the most streamlined to get plans, TIPs, and projects done is what we ought to recommend.
I have a couple of items. One, if this is replacing the planning and zoning, so it should only go to planning and zoning under the municipal code for the one item. Maybe the rest will all not go to the planning and zoning commission, correct? I'm confused by that.
I think the current PMP says the Citizens Advisory Committee, serving as a planning and zoning, public involvement, UPWP, TIP, and plan. Is that right, Craig?
That's what our current practice is. The only one that's required by municipal code is the MTP because it's an element of the comp plan.
So-
Other than that, we wouldn't be required to take the TIP or the work program or anything else to them.
Right, so it's only one item out of all of our work. So because we don't have the bylaws, we can always make adjustments and put more land use tie in to the makeup of that advisory committee. So, you know, I mean, we have that flexibility to adjust that, but you still have still try to, beef up the land use portion, but still have more control over, the only thing on their agenda would be items for AMATS. So there's always that possibility. So I think that, as you said, Lance, I think it's still very important that we're trying to be efficient, because it's also, being efficient also helps with keeping budgets on track, meeting timelines. So I think that we could take some of the essence of the concerns of the citizens, the P&Z about the land use, and I think we could put our thoughts on when we try to do, if it stays, if this proposal goes through, that we can work on the bylaws, on the composition of the committee to try to beef up the land use portion.
Any other questions, comments? Before we open the door? Mr.
Not to
Martin?
mention the direction that it looked like the policy committee was trending at the last meeting. It was 2 months ago. It's probably the information. I think that concept has quite a bit of merit from a time savings perspective. If we have much value added product for the Citizens Advisory Committee effort in recent years.
what I mean, I think the fact that the MTP still has to go through the planning and zoning commission, I think that's primarily, I mean, I don't say that there are other elements things we do don't involve the integration of land use and transportation, but that's the main place. And that's the long-term view. They're still involved with that. And you know, and if they are a bottleneck, they're a bottleneck for all of the things that now have to go through them. I think that it's a good compromise, the fact that they're still involved in the MTP. And then if we have a second committee that could expedite some of the other planning documents that we need to get completed on a timely fashion, I think we've addressed it. That's a good solution, in my opinion.
Else? At this time, I'm going to open this for public comment, if there's any comments or questions on the operating agreement that is before us.
For a member of the planning and zoning commission.
Just wondering if you're gonna.
I thought it was hiding behind.
You were for me, but not.
Well, I guess I wear two hats, because I've been AMATS staff and I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission, so I appreciate your discussion. I think you had a good discussion and raised the majority of the points that are worth raising, so. Planning and Zoning Commission, I think, primarily was concerned about the composition of the new Citizen Advisory Committee, and felt that it wouldn't be much of an improvement over what the existing Citizen Advisory Committee, Planning and Zoning Commission represented. They felt that they did represent, geographically at least, the majority of the city. I think, I was on the other side of the resolution, so I hesitate to, I don't know if I should really speak my mind, because I should only represent the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I'm trying to explain what maybe some of their issues were. And they wanted, so they were concerned about the ultimate composition that would be appointed by the policy committee. Because I told them that I thought the policy committee would do a fine job and would not bias any citizen advisory committee, that was well balanced between the state and the city and the assembly, and I thought they would probably bring something to diversity to the committee. But the Planning and Zoning Commission disagreed and thought that they were pretty well integrated or representative. The land use, I think, a good point about the comp plan. The Planning and Zoning Commission will look at the comp plan and will evaluate the links between the transportation and the land use, I think, and still serve that role. On the other hand, with my other hat as AMATS staff, I remember, was that you, Gary, I think, when we did this last time, the MTP update. It took us 2 months to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission, but they're still going to be involved in the comp plan, so we're still going to have to deal with that when we have deadlines with the comp plan. But it won't be such an issue with all the other elements that AMATS deals with, the TIP and congestion management plan. That'll be expedited, I think. And I don't agree that, I think if you call the Citizen Advisory Committee and have it, hopefully get a quorum, that might be an issue, getting a quorum, but you'll expedite all those other issues, other elements substantially. And I think that's an important consideration. Not to mention the Federal Highway Administration. And I mean, I don't believe that the commission really realized that when the Federal Highway Administration speaks in your certification review, you should really try to comply with their suggestions. If there are suggestions, you should probably try to do it.
It's the should that really means shall.
Should really means shall, and I think there was some thought that maybe, you shouldn't bend to the feds, they're trying to tell you what to do, and that maybe it's not as important as what Craig needs to consider when they speak. He needs to listen to them. I don't think the Planning and Zoning Commission really understood that, maybe. There, I overstepped my bounds, and I didn't mean to criticize the Planning and Zoning Commission's resolution, I think they did really honestly feel that it wasn't necessary to have a separate one, but let's get both sides of it.
Thank you, John.
Question for
Ms. Swift?
May I ask you a question, John, now that you have seen both sides from working as staff to try to get the NTP approved, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and now that you're on the Planning and Zoning Commission, if indeed they were to remain as a Citizens Advisory Committee, do you have any would there be a way to modify perhaps your public participation plan to streamline their reviews, whether it's concurrent with the assembly or something else? That was our biggest challenge, was the sequential nature of it and the inability to have any flexibility. And I mean, I think it was procedural was what was holding us up before. Do you have any other ideas on how to expedite if they were to remain?
I'm not sure there is a way to expedite approval of a comp plan element, because there are certain requirements that Title 21 requires in terms of the number of days that you posted for comments, the number of days before a public hearing is required by Title 21. So as far as the comp plan is concerned, I don't think it's possible unless you change the comp plan approval process in Title 21. The other ones don't require public hearings. The SWIP doesn't require a public hearing. You know, the citizen public involvement plan doesn't require a public hearing. So those things can be expedited already. It's just a comp plan element that makes it difficult and we're constrained by the requirements.
And part of the process, part of the slowdown was that the previous chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission had said, we want to hear the documents that you have after the public comment period closes. So that's how we had written up our public procedure to say, here's the 30-day public comment period, then after that, then we schedule the meeting with Planning and Zoning Commission as our Citizen Advisory Committee. There's no reason why we couldn't say the public hearing for that is during the public comment period. We had just written it up that way to, you know, at the wishes of the former chair.
So that's what some of the things I'm looking at. I mean, if they were to remain in that and had the desire to continue to see themselves function as that, if there's a way in our public participation plan to modify the process. Because following our own process almost put us into, you know, non-compliance. So that's where our public participation plan is being tweaked, and this is where that kind of brings us here. And if I may, just an observation from recent meetings is that I think there is not a very good understanding on the Planning and Zoning Commission aside from you, Mr. Spring, on process and how projects are developed and implemented. I was so surprised the other night to hear how DOT is viewed as eliminating a lot of affordable housing in Anchorage as part of its projects, and that. So I think maybe there is opportunities for better dovetailing of transportation and land use, as well as coordination and understanding on that connection. Because as a developed community, it's very, very difficult to improve safety or capacity without impacting existing land uses. And so, and yet I had also seen the very big disconnect that only you were able to really, that you brought forward with the recommendation having to do with the Gamble Street and the role of the long-range transportation plan versus a neighborhood plan. I saw the benefit of your expertise bringing that to the commission, but yeah, I just don't know that having so I'm up for suggestions on what to do. The other question I have for my committee members here that are municipal employees, is it an awkward time for such a switch when you have a new administration coming on? I don't know.
Everything's moving target, so. Why not person tell? I know you had another comment, question, but before, is it directly related to John?
No,
What I said, John? I I wanted, are there any other questions or comments from the public on this item before we move back to the committee? Hearing none, the matter now lies with the committee.
Can I make something else?
Yes, Ms. Howe.
If you haven't been to the last couple of policy committee meetings that this is a topic, there was a lot of question about whether or not the citizen, even to have the need of a citizens advisory committee, regardless of whether it's a newly formed one or the planning and zoning. So I look at it like we have an issue to either, before we even decide which flavor, it decides if we really want to have a citizen advisory committee at the technical level, because if we do, then we might want to just leave it as is and work on what you were suggesting maybe is during the update of the public involvement plan, just try to put in some efficiencies there, or do we take the risk and go into the policy committee and come up with a new approach, and where we might risk losing the citizen advisory committee completely. So I just thought that as I think we'd be careful about how we proceed.
That's it.
Good point. Well, yeah.
Well, I think we need substantive input, and the question is, and timely input. I mean, that's been a problem in the past. That, I'm sure that there could be improvement on the planning and commission side, but after listening to the entire discussion today, I'm not averse to creating a new entity that, especially considering what one or two comments from the policy committee members last time indicated, questioning the validity of it. And I think you, Craig, you made the point that, most, not all communities are the same, but for the majority, there seemed to be a citizen advisory entity there. And the feds found it to be important, so I think it is important to have the citizen advisory committee. And considering that the Planning and Zoning Commission still will see MTP as an element of part of the comprehensive plan, that I'm not adverse to creating a new body.
I'll take a stab at it and get the conversation going. I recommend that we support staff's recommendation to create a separate Citizens Advisory Committee, Citizens Advisory Committee for the purposes of helping AMATS review its plans and programs, and make sure that we have good representation appointed by the policy committee. I would also suggest that we put sunset on the committee to review in July 1st, 2017. And the reason being is that, the boards and commissions of the city have sunsets on them, and they get reviewed to find out their efficiencies of doing it. By 2017, we're going to be through a TIP, a plan, amendment, and we should be able to get the crew together. If they're not efficient and they're not effective, then we terminate it on July 1st, 2017, and we go back to the process we have while we're still working with planning and zoning. So, motion is to create a CAC with a sunset of July 1st, 2017. Recommend the policy.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Wilbur, second by Mr. Weaver. Discussion. I like that sunset clause. It can be useful for all of our.
Get one of these for you.
I know, right?
We
all get our own little sunset.
I was just wondering now, do we have one?
We should.
Are there any other, is there any other discussion, or are there any opposed to the motion? Hearing none, we are so moved. We recommend approval of modification to the 2014 operating agreement and the sunset clause of July 1st, 2017. Thank you, Mr. Wilbur. And everybody else? Next item before us, item 5B, is the 2015 to 2018 TIP Administrative Modification number 4.
It almost seems like a monthly occurrence now with admin mods, but you know, we gotta keep track somehow. If you look at the memo, probably a lot easier to go through that than the actual legal size tip there. You can see, we have the table down below, you'll see the items in black saying the current FY 2015 to 18 tip, and then the rest are the changes. So for changes that are all in that particular table, you can see O'Malley Road reconstruction, did some, about $1 million additional wetlands mitigation being required in 2015. Abbott Road rehab, the money in that one is just being balanced out to, make the program work. There's just some balancing of the dollars there. Spinard Road rehab, that project is going to be delayed from 2016 start. I think the agreement with the city is that the city is doing the design, and the environmental, and we'll create the environmental document, so that won't be done in time to have a hit occur in 15, so we're gonna move that out to 16. And then Rabbit Creek reconstruction, that money is being delayed, at least right now, to 2018. That one's just not quite right enough to go. And those are the changes right there. The dollar figures in those changes would require the policy committee to approve this, so we're asking for your recommendation to approve this admin mod. I'm sure Mr. Morton can share all in-depth details of those specific projects, but that's the general idea. Dump it right now.
Ms. Wick?
On just a point about Rabbit Creek reconstruction, it was recognized that it's also on the list for pavement rehab. And so the pavement needs addressed, and then possibly if there's a new key program and the project for the Golden View intersection, then the reconstruction can wait like a couple more years to start. So I'm recognizing it's going to be a costly.
Also, our current cost estimate for the Rabbit Creek Road reconstruction effort is close to $30 million instead of $15 million. We had an additional lane and separate pedestrian facilities on each side, in addition to the roadway. It's also going to get right of the strip on one of both sides for pretty much the length of the project. It's quite a bit of impact.
So the reconstruction is a 3-lane.
Yes, it's down. And shoulders and had additional facilities on the outside.
Questions or comments?
Just a question about the O'Malley, wetlands mitigation, that's the majority of the cost?
That's an additional, yeah.
Any detailing of what?
I don't have detail on that. The fill-in wetlands fee is exacted. Depends on the value of the wetlands. We're waiting the road a fair amount. It's a wet area. And it's Anchorage, so it's expensive.
Any other questions or comments? Then I will open this for public comment this time. If there's anybody in the audience who'd like to comment on the 2015-2018 TIP Administrative Modification number 4, now is your chance. I wish I had music. You know, something like a little time, like da-da-da-da-da, like something, you know. Exactly, something. All right, hearing no comments. It lies to the committee.
Second.
Mr. Weaver moved, Mr. Second, is there any opposed to the motion? Hearing none, so moved. We recommend that the AMATS policy committee approve the TIP modification. Number 4. First item is the second quarter obligation report.
Basically, this reflects the changes you just approved. Thank you. Otherwise, you would have had to read it up right.
Recommend for approval.
Recommend for approval. So there's no approval needed on this, it's just an informational item. You can see that we're progressing fairly well in terms of what we've already obligated and what we need to obligate. On the first page there, all those, the red ink down below, those are all, for the most part, the obligations. So we're catching up, showing those projects that are closing out and what we have there. If you go to the second page, let's see, then the last page there, you'll see, near the bottom it says total AMATS allocation, difference between anticipated equal tip and dollars and percent. We need to be within 10% at the end of the second quarter. We're at 8.24%, so we're under what we're required to at the end of the second quarter. We're right where we need to be. So, yeah, we're looking good. We're doing what we need to do, and nothing looks like it's in danger of slipping right now. Anything else to point out, Aaron?
Yes. On page 1, you'll see that Dowling Road Extension is on there under the previously utilized funds to show that currently we're looking at a construction overrun of about $2.1 million. And so we put that on there just to keep everyone aware that we'll either have to cover it with the obligations, which is our hope and anticipation. If we can't, then we'll have to look at utilizing the AMATS allocation to cover that road. So that's just a thing to be aware of. And then on the second page, the pedestrian plan project implementation is currently underway. And it's experiencing something similar to what happened with the bike plan. They already had money obligated. They have more money from 15, but they don't have, they're not at the stage to move forward with anything else with construction. So currently they only need about $200,000 from the $650,000 programmed in the TIP. So there's about $450,000 remaining that we will need to make a recommendation for on what to do. And hopefully soon we'll have some kind of recommendation. What we're maybe looking at doing is moving that money into the bike plan to help with the construction costs to get that moving forward, to keep it going for 15. So we'll be coming with a recommendation next month or so to do that and see what you guys think. So just something to be aware of. And that's it.
Informational items for the public as well. Are there any questions or comments from the public about item 6A, the second quarter obligation report? Okay, moving on to the next item then, 6B, CMP Tech Memo number 6, Congestion Management Strategies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Teresa Brewer, and I'm a Senior Transportation Planner with AMATS. And today you have before you Tech Memo number 6, a draft on congestion management strategies. And it identifies some strategies for your Tier 1 performance measures that you identified in the earlier Tech Memo. And they look at some gap analysis and needs and develop the toolbox. Also, there is a small graphic handout attached with this. These are not entirely reflective of all the strategies that we have. Transit has made some comments on this. So, for instance, it says reduction in transit fares. We will likely not be implementing that. So I just wanted to point that out because I know Lance is here and Christine has made some comments, and we're waiting some comments from DOT on the draft. We'd like to have the TAC comments back to us by May the 29th. I'll send out the document via email to you. I have Dan Kretschmar on the phone today with Cambridge Systematics, and they are the consultant team that is responsible for helping us with this plan, along with my team members, Aaron Youngland and co-project manager Vivian Underwood. Dan, are you there? Let me get my cell phone.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
All right, Dan, I will let you take it from there and give an overview of the technical report number 6. Thank you.
Yeah, basically, the knowledge is where it fits into the process is that we're still collecting data and getting ready to do evaluate and to adapt the status. And to do part of our scope is to identify kind of a set of strategies that could be brought to bear. Part of the project is we would select a couple of potential strategies and test them on the system just to demonstrate how to do that. So this report is mainly consistent with just some background on where it fits in the CMP process. It's got a list of strategies you'll see in the handout, and they're categorized in different ways. And I think as Teresa mentioned, this is just kind of a total laundry list. Obviously, a lot of them are not appropriate now. Something that maybe, if you think further out into the future, may become more viable at some point. So, what you want to kind of list depends on what your time frame is and probably how much growth you anticipate. But anyway, for now, it's just kind of a complete list, and they're not, some of them that have been implemented are being done now, a lot of them are not. So that's what we do, is establish what the possibilities are. And then there's a section in the back that talks about some of the tools, technical tools that can be used to evaluate the strategies that are out there and how they can be used to do that. So that's really almost more of a reference document. What are the things we can do and what are the tools to do these situations? So I think that's kind of the overview without really going into detail. We hope people will look at it, give us some feedback, and we may be able to sort of reduce the scope of it a little bit if people feel that some of these things just don't belong with, or if we're missing anything.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions or comments?
I just have a question. How much data have you collected so far, and where did it come from, and what are you looking to collect additionally?
I'm sorry, I heard part of the question.
Your data collection, what have you collected so far?
We
And
clearly cut down, we're talking to the traffic and transit both. We don't have a lot of it yet. We actually did get some today. But it provided kind of the wish list, if you will. So that's in process right now. And then most of it was based on what was in the last status of the system report.
Kim Carpenter's group has been collecting data in 2012, 2013, and some Bluetooth data in 2014. We're just going over those lists to make sure that they are consistent with some of the needs that are in the status of the system and some of the segments and corridors. So she's been working with Dan at this time, and I know that Christine's been working with Dan also in transit.
thank you.
Any other questions? Are there any questions or comments from the public on this item? So you asked for comments from the TAC by May 29th?
Please.
Okay.
And we'll bring this document before you again on the June 11th TAC meeting for final approval.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Next item for us is 6C, I believe. This one is the interim 2035 MTP TAC review draft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Vivian Underwood. I'm a senior transportation planner with the Municipality of Anchorage and staff to AMATS. For this item, you have internal TAC review drafts only for the draft 2035 NTP, and then an air quality conformity determination report. The reason why it's internal only at this point is because Chapter 6, which is the financial plan, is still need to have a few more minor edits done, and Aaron O'Neill will talk to you about that in a minute. It's largely finished though, and you'll notice that it has the same look and feel as the 2035 NTP, and that's on purpose because it is a companion document and it does confirm the 2035 NTP. And it was exactly 1 month ago that our contract with PPC Engineers was signed, I'd like you to note. And Brian Hill is here today. And before I say anything else, I want to thank everybody who's been helping. DOT has been absolutely wonderful. They've let us use their procurement process to get this contract going. It was fast. And you know, it took a little bit longer than we thought. It was still a lot faster than, I hate to say, the municipality right now.
And less beautiful.
Well, they did a great job. And I want to thank Aaron too. Aaron did a really nice job. And I want to thank the non-motorized coordinator, the public transportation staff, DHHS did the air quality conformity chapter, and I'm not missing anybody anyway. There is some new material in this, basically chapters 4, 6, 8, and 9. Chapter 4 in the 2035 NTP is the status of the transportation system today. Well, the next update is being done under the congestion management process contract, and it's not finished yet. So rather than just repeat everything that's said in the 2035, we did some updates to projects that have been done that were in the 2035 NTP to now. And Chapter 6, Aaron is updating. He'll talk to you about that. You have already approved all of the assumptions and revenue assumptions for that chapter, so we're just putting the finishing touches on it. Chapter 8 in the 2035 MTP is implementation, and we've taken the opportunity to turn it into sort of a report card for what we've done since then. There were 110 action items in the MTP, in the implementation plan. Most of those were ongoing. There were 40 that were discrete items in the 0 to 5 year time frame, and of those, all staff, not just our group, have either completed or are working on 38 of them, which is 95%. If I'd like to know that. So, and Chapter 9, of course, is the new air quality conformity determination, which is a chapter that references the determination report. And the bottom line there is that since the 2012 MTP, we now are in a maintenance area for CO for the Anchorage Bowl and maintenance for PM10 for the Eagle River area. And the essential information of Chapter 6, the financial plan, is that the Federal Highway Administration does not approve the MTP, but they do approve the air quality conformity determination. In order to do that, they have to make a de facto finding of fiscal constraint. So it's very important that we get Chapter 6 correct. And the bottom line is that no projects are going to have to be taken out of the MTP. We did not have to do any modeling, and we're in conformity. So, yay! So what we would like you to do is, if you could please take a look at this and get us your comments in a week's time by the 21st, if you could. We're offering a work session on the 27th in room 170. And I understand that not everybody is able to come, and I apologize about that, but we are going to make ourselves available in the morning and in the afternoon. Whatever time you need, we'll be here for you. It's really important that we get your feedback. And, we are on schedule with this project. It's pretty amazing. We have to thank our consultants for helping us do that too. But all of us, I must say, it was pretty intense this last month. I feel like I've done 3 months of work in 20 minutes. I'm sure we all have.
So has the day of the work session been determined?
The 27th.
The 27th.
Is it the 27th?
Yes, it is the
Okay,
27th.
thank you.
Okay.
The 27th.
Is it the
Well,
whole day?
we're going to get back to you on that. If it looks like people can cluster around certain times, we'll do that. Have you heard back from everybody yet?
I haven't heard back from everybody.
I'd be in June, I'm sorry.
Pardon me?
I'll be a junior.
Oh, I'm sorry. We could have a call-in if you, or if you're
Quality though.
You're not going
I think she'd rather be with us.
Well, if you just send us your comments by, and if you could, please try to be specific, page number, item number, and things. What we want to know too, are if there are any deal breakers in here. There are no surprises in here. We just want to make sure that we worded it incorrectly and that you're not making any inferences that shouldn't be made and that sort of thing.
Can I just make sure I understood? So you said the chapters that are changed, that have changes to them are 4, 6, 8, and 9. In chapter 4, you said really the only thing that has been updated in the project list is you identified which projects have been completed.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
since, all right.
Yes. And the flavor of it is new because we're talking later than the 2012
Yeah.
MTP. So we're saying 2035 MTP did this, that was done in this document.
Got it.
It's an easy read. I don't think it's not. And the chapter 6 has been completely revamped, largely because we got some feedback from the Federal Highway Administration asking us to make it simpler for the public to understand and to simplify the tables. So some of those tables that had every single year listed out, short-term and long-term, they asked us to capsule those down into groups of years. So Aaron has done that. Did you want to talk about chapter 6?
Yes, so I apologize for chapter 6. It was the last chapter that we did. And by last, I mean we finished it this morning, right before we printed off the document. But it is all assumptions that you have approved and that the policy committee approved. So a few things that you'll notice that aren't done. There's some numbers in there, so you see X billion or X million. I just haven't had a chance to add up the numbers to be able to put it in and make sure it's correct, because we're still, the 2035 MTP wasn't very clear if it was $2010 or $2035, so we're trying to get it all the same through the entire document when we talk about money. And there's also some tables that we need to finish up, the O&M specifically. I had to work on condensing those down into easily readable ones, and we just didn't get them in time. So you'll notice there might be a table that's incorrect or there's a table missing. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on it and hopefully get it done tomorrow or Monday, depending on how things go. And Brian's going to help me with that. And we're going to get it out to you, just Chapter 6 on its own in electronic format, so you can have it available to look at. So that's it.
So does anybody have any questions?
I do. It's evident that you put a lot of effort into it. It's done a really good job. It shows.
Outstanding.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Well, I guess there's one thing to note, sorry.
I'd leave it right there if I were you.
Well, there is something that's different. The Connect Arm Crossing has been pulled into one separate little section on its own. And except we do mention it briefly in one of the chapters to talk about, I think in Chapter 6 we briefly mentioned that no money from the MTP will be spent on the Connect Arm Crossing. Very similar to the statement that's in the 2035, so we reiterate that. And then it's 7A is the new subsection for Cabata, which we actually had them work on that and put it in here. So they've reviewed it and given their blessing for it. So that's it.
I'd like to say one more thing. The implementation plan in the 2035 MTP that Kittleson did, it was wonderful. It's the first time we've ever done anything like that. And I want to compliment them on that because it's been really easy to work those in specific tasks into our work program, TIP, and I think that we should continue to do that. And it's easy to track them too. There are so many non-capital recommendations in this MTP, it's makes your head spin. And for staff to have to go through and pull all those out is very time consuming. So we really appreciate the fact that they did that. It was great.
I like how you made the suggestion, because this arrhythmia chart on page 6, that's.
Oh, yeah.
It's so telling. If you could show the last one.
Do a comparison between the two.
Yeah, just a top and bottom, kind of like you did the old and the new.
It'd probably work better because of how big the graph is. We may need a separate page where we show them.
Yeah, just to,
So-
however it would work, but I think it tells a pretty good story because it shows how we have tempered some of our assumptions
Okay.
or how some of the assumptions weren't as bad as they were anticipated on the federal side at least. It does. Holy cow. It is interesting to compare what your assumptions were with what you've observed for years. You would often have that backward look, so thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I see what you're,
Yeah, before last
I see what you mean, just the original.
What was that?
You were right there.
Oh, I meant to tell you too, there's a glitch in the pagination on the air quality conformity analysis. It was done in different sections. Section 2 starts all over with page 1. There's a blank page 1 and then it starts with section 2. And we're going to fix that for the final. I just wanted to let you know that we are aware of that. And it's minor, but I wanted you to know.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the public at this time on the, oh, wait a minute, we didn't do this.
No, it's not for the
This is only
public.
internal, so
Yep.
nobody else can, you guys don't get to comment.
Correct.
This is private. You'll get to see it soon. All right, next item is 60, the non-motorized transportation update.
All right, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm Laura Skanke, the non-motorized transportation coordinator. For your pleasure, I have a report, and it's going to come up, so I'll let you get situated while I turn it on here.
Second one is on. There it is.
There it goes.
The lights are green.
Yeah, but you can see it over there. It's just slow.
It's slowly coming up.
Yeah, I was putting this together and realized it was a year ago I was here, so. And also, while we're waiting for this to come up, I was given permission to give away a Bike to Work t-shirt. So there are some little yellow pieces of paper over there. You can go ahead and.
Just hit computer on the projector one. It's probably just trying to. Had to do that before.
It's terrible to have the shining in your eyes while the whole meeting's going on. So just want to tell you a few things. Is there any way that can go down a bit, Craig? One of the projects that we were working on last year was West Northern Lights, which is of course a state road, but we had state grant funds to go ahead and put this pathway in. It'd be nice to have a final photo with green grass and everything, but it's not often you see a unicyclist going down that path. So I got a picture of him. So this has been a really popular project, and we've done counts before and after, and actually we're waiting for another after because last year's was still too soon. People thought it was still under construction. Another project that we're working on is Checkmate Drive, and you can see there are no sidewalks, and it's a direct access to a school, and we're getting that going again this summer. And unfortunately, everybody wants a piece of Checkmate Drive because AWW's in there right now. So as soon as they're done, we will be getting in and putting our sidewalk in from Tudor all the way to Emmanuel Street. So that'll be great.
What's the not funded?
The not funded project is 120th Avenue, and this is looking towards the east. Sorry, I can't think here. And Ocean View Elementary School is right here, and there is no sidewalk, and unfortunately there's no funding. So I was excited thinking it was going ahead, but not quite yet. Muldoon Elementary School, you can see the couple before pictures, and here's after. It's a little hard to see here. It was dark when I took the photo, but we have a crossing, and we'll be going in and putting a raised crossing in. We also added a couple benches, and it's a big sidewalk, so it's a lot nicer for kids to get to school. And this was state grant funded as well. A Street is a project that DOT put in last year, and they put bike lanes in, and it was great. And we've now heard that now we have to pay for the bike lanes. So this was a freebie, and we really appreciate it. And I know the bicyclists appreciate it too, and we're still working on C Street to see if that can work out. Arctic Boulevard is the first one of the AMATS projects that the federal funds are building, and that just got finished this week. And it goes from Fireleaf with bike lanes down to 17th. At 17th, over by Valley of the Moon Park, there's so much parking there with park activities, and they don't have parking in the park that we turned it to shared lane markings all the way up and onto E Street. So we'll revisit that hopefully if Parks goes ahead and gets parking put in the park, which they have a plan to do, they just need money. These are the other lists of projects that are in Group 1, and as I mentioned, C Street is still being figured out. A lot of people are working very hard to figure out these projects, so I know that the bicycle community has been waiting and waiting, and they're coming, and there's a few little changes, but we'll just say that they're being worked on right now, and we hope to see things coming up soon. Cordova Street is a project that was grant funded, and we're putting in bike lanes on both sides from 15th to 9th Avenue, and then north of 9th Avenue we have a lot of on-street parking and the road is narrower, so we'll be doing the shared lane markings. 10th Avenue Bicycle Boulevard is another project that we've been working on. We have a big public meeting coming up next week, and I just heard yesterday that 2,000 people have been invited, so we'll see how that goes. So far the talk has been good. There have been a couple people that are not too happy, mostly with the idea of trying to do back-in parking, because this will take a whole code change. Back-in parking is safer for bicycle boulevards. So it's the start of a process, and we'll be going through things, and we're working with Stephanie and the traffic engineering on that, and moving ahead. We also have another project on West 27th Avenue, and that's from, I'll just show you the photo here. It's from Minnesota down to Blueberry. And if any of you are familiar with going by the Beartooth Theater Pub, and there's hardly room for people to walk, especially with cars parking and snow piling up. And then also, because Northern Lights is such a heavily used and busy street, we're trying to find an east-west bike connector in Midtown. So that's what this whole project is going to be working on. And we have some experts coming in from out of town that have been hired by the consultants. The Safe Routes to School plan is something we've been working on this year. We're right now still collecting data. We went to 5 different schools. That we're writing a draft plan. We'll be bringing it to AMATS, I imagine, and the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Assembly. But now I've heard that the state is now canceling their Safe Routes to School group, so we'll have to just get funding from other places. We looked at a whole bunch of different schools. Russian Jack Elementary School. It's interesting where kids find a way to walk. And there's probably 30 kids that come through there every day. There's a little chain they hop over. And then there's a crossing guard right at the school. And we also found some drainage issues. So we've got all kinds of things wrapped up with this project. We went to Chinook Elementary School, and I've got to tell you, if you're ever out on 88 when the public school is going in and out, the elementary school, it is crazy. There are cars lined all the way up, and that crossing guard is quite the hero for standing out there with her little sign. Wonder Park Elementary School, as you can see, there's not a lot of sidewalks. Of course, there is a sidewalk here, but the parents are leading their kids home on the street. This street here is a bus route as well, and now I can't remember the name of the street, but it's another route that we'll be looking at and possibly putting on the list for sidewalks. Ptarmigan Elementary School has quite a hill that a lot of kids walk up, and unfortunately there's also a lot of kids that get driven to school here. So part of the Safe Routes to School plan is trying to make things safer so that parents feel they can let their kids walk to school. This is a large mobile home court, and a lot of the kids come from there. I just got the scatter maps today, or splatter maps from the school district where it shows where all the kids live.
That's the famous state of hell.
Yeah, that's where I was standing, and it was really crazy. So, another thing that we do is we have a whole bunch of volunteers that count bicycles every year, or bicycles and riders on Bike to Work Day, and those are the couple handouts that I did give you. It shows the 8 years that we've been counting and the increases, and I do have about 25 volunteers that go out on Bike to Work Day, starting at 6:30 in the morning till 9. And I'm happy to report that Ms. Witt and her sister, Mr. Morris, Anna Boson, John Spring, Jamie Acton, and Brian Hall, who I just met today, are all counters for me. So we pass this on. Oh, and I forgot Mr. And you've been doing it for years, and you know, without you folks, we wouldn't have this. So thank you. The other handout, we actually count which direction people are going, because we coordinate with data, and we count who's got helmets on. One year, one person wanted to count how many people were smoking on their truck. We didn't feel that. Now, the bike maps, you've all got an advanced copy. They actually arrive tomorrow, and believe it or not, we do change these every year. I talked with the folks at DOT and our folks, and we move the little cones around to try and give people an idea where construction will be. Construction changes, so it doesn't always happen that way. We have all the bike shops, and along each side is also some really good bicycle safety tips. So please take a look at that, and some wildlife tips if you run into a moose. And CRW Engineering Group has helped us update the map every year, and this year People Mover actually helped fund the printing, as did the municipality air quality. So thank you all so much. And we've distributed 90,000 maps. That's not counting this year, so that's pretty good, and they're always free, so we're very proud of that. So thank you very much. That's the end of my report. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Yes, Ms.
What's back-in parking?
Back-in angle parking would be that you drive up to the spot and then you back in. So as you're leaving, like the back of the car would be at the curb, you could have a full view of the street.
It's mandated though. Like if you park in, you could be cited. Is that how it works?
That's
Yes,
correct.
that's why we have to make
Okay.
code changes to be able to allow it specifically. It has to have the sign properly and have the code there so it can be enforced.
And then what's even more complicated is the north half of the street is Easy Park, the south half is APD. So it's going to be an interesting project. Yes, Brian.
How do you, when you're dealing with like 10th and 27th, where you're trying to establish bicycle corridors 1 block away from busy streets, how do you deal with the intersections that usually 1 block away from busy streets, there's stop signs at every intersection that the bicycles will have to hit versus going and playing Frogger on the main streets that they can at least get moving through faster? Do you have some way to mitigate for that?
Yes, there are a number of ways to do it, and we're actually having a Bicycle Boulevard training coming up, and we have a couple of experts coming to town, and we've invited the local design professionals, and so far we've got 25 people coming. And there are different methods to do, which of course we'll have to run through traffic department, or division, but there are things like medians that can go in to discourage cars, but of course we've got roads like Arctic that are pretty free-flowing, so it's going to be something that we'll have to look at and figure out how to deal with it. There's also like special lights you can get, but we'll just have to see, and we'll work things out. Anyone else?
I'm not sure, was this, the map, the last map, did it say for utility cyclists?
I don't remember.
But I really like that.
Oh, good. Let me see started the bike plan, that was the message that we got from utility cyclists. So
People like to pick it up and think it's playing.
right, it's not necessarily for children. Great, thanks.
Thank you, Laura.
People trying to turn left on that.
You have a presentation? Okay, so I don't have mine.
Yeah, next up is going to be the public transportation, item 6E. Yes, and that's
I know.
So, in our public involvement plan for AMATS, once a year, public transportation comes and gives AMATS an update of what's going on in our world. The railroad was in a couple months ago. And then last month we were supposed to be here, but we had a really busy agenda. Craig was gracious enough to let us come this month. I've got a few slides here. I'm going to talk about really what our service is, some changes that we've seen at least from 13 to 14, and then I have some news and some projects that we're working on. Many of them are funded in the TIP, and I'll give the committee an update on those as well. So, really, when people look at public transportation, they want to know two things. One, what's the ridership look like? And two, are you on time? So this is the first slide. The second slide is if we're on time. So then if we're done, then I put these first in case we were short. People Mover are on our fixed route People Mover service in 2014. We had 3.8 million passenger trips. If you add all of the service, including anchor rides in the van pool, a little over 4 million passenger trips. It's down about 3% since, this is the 2014 number, it's down about 3% since 2013. And our overall hours of revenue service is down about 1.5%. So there's a lot of things that affect ridership, and I have a slide in here that will talk a little bit about that. One of the things that I don't have on here that's related to Lori's comment is we now keep track of how many bikes are actually put on buses. In 2014, we had over 55,000 bikes put on buses. I've been reminded that our bike racks do not take fat tire bikes, and so, but even in December and January, we carry over 1,500 bikes in December and January, but in May and August, we're up to 12,000 every day, or every month. So this is really the key slide, I think, at least from people want to know, if I'm tired of waiting the bus and it's never on time. Well, what you see here in 2014, the green line is a trend of our on-time performance. And to us, on-time means within 5 minutes of the posted schedule, whether you're looking on your phone or on the printed schedule. That means 85 in 2014 for all 4 quarters averaged 85% on time within 5 minutes. We do not take out delays for construction, detours, weather, accidents, anything.
Special activities.
Special activities downtown, so when we get jammed up downtown and those are all averaged in. So, and still when you average those in, we're at 85% for the entire network. 2013, we were at about 79 and 72. I mean, we've come a long way to make adjustments for on-time performance. Anchor Rides has pretty much been steady at about 90% on time. The way Anchor Rides works is it's a scheduled service, and on time is if Craig needs a ride at 4 o'clock, the window is 15 minutes before or 15 minutes after, and that's how paratransit works, because we'd be picking up Craig and then maybe Jerry and myself and Lori to make that trip. For those of you who might not be familiar with our coverage, People Mover has 14 bus routes. Our hub of our operations is really in the downtown transit center. We go all the way from Ocean View all the way out to the airport and out to Peters Creek. And the network looks pretty much the same. There was a hill that Lori mentioned, or Lori showed in a picture, and Stephanie mentioned, we used to have a route that went straight across here, Route 8. We used to go down that hill, it's called Statham, and we'd get a bus on the hill, and cars would come around the corner and T-bone us. And then we'd get that one cleared up, and 2 hours later, another car would come around and hit the bus. When a car hits the bus, we have to stop. The buses hit cars. So we kind of had to reduce our risk there. But really try to get all over town and with our service coverage. This map is illustrates the 14 routes. And from Route 1, which is really kind of our sort of a crosstown route, it goes from, well, all across town, back around here. But the key I want to point out to is the Route 45. The Route 45 starts at the Alaska Native Medical Center, goes through the university, by East High School, up through Mountain View, and then downtown along Post Road. Of the 3.8 million trips that we had, 700,000 of them were just on that one route. The Route 45 carries 2/3 of our ridership. The Route 14 is really a short route. Starts at City Hall, goes to Government Hill, comes right back. So we carry about 200 people a day on that one. And then Eagle River is a really long deadhead. We drive out empty in the morning, we come back full, and then at the last one we come back empty. So when people are looking at where we're going to, the efficiencies of our service and what routes are important and where we want to make modifications, this is an important graph. So I put this one in here a little this year because there's been a lot of conversations about how come your ridership is going down. Is it the price of gas, or is it what the economy is? So we just took two variables. One variable is the price of gas. The price of gas has gone up and then kind of flattened out over time. The blue line that's right in the middle with the dot, see what's happening when the caffeine runs off? Man, you start to get the shakes. I start thinking, I gotta need a Red Bull or something. So you see that blue line, and that's basically a reflection of the economy. That's the real income per capita. The gas prices you can understand. The real income means this. It's basically what your dollar will buy. So if the cost of living went up 10%, but the wages went up 10%, everything went up, but the value of what you're buying is pretty much the same. Does that make sense? It's not like you get a huge pay raise, but commodities don't rise, so that you can buy more, do more with your money. In Anchorage, when prices go up, basically salaries and your ability to stay in Anchorage are pretty much the same from 2010 to 2014. Obviously, everyone has a story that says, I'm better than that or I'm not that good. But the point is, how much does the economy affect ridership? And how much does gas prices affect ridership? Well, what you can see is this purple line right here is the van pool program. It's whacked. When prices went up, the van pool program went up, prices kept going up. For some reason, the van pool participation went down, and then it went back up, and now it's going back down. So there's a lot of forces in that. A lot of it have to do with our van pool program. Half of our van pools originate in the valley and come into town. The interesting one is the Anchor Rides. Anchor Rides is blue. It's pretty much flat. Same thing with the price. So gas doesn't affect Anchor Rides because people that use it typically don't drive. But the ridership in Anchor Rides has gone down, and a lot of it has to do with the resources that we have been able to gather to pay for trips. A lot of times Medicaid or state funds have been available. When those funds aren't available, the trips go down. As a matter of fact, we're negotiating. Our contractors come to us because we have a provision. When the trips go down, they have a provision in their contract to renegotiate with us. So the green line is people mover. What you see here is, even when gas prices jacked up all the way out to 2012, people mover, the ridership pretty much stayed the same. When gas prices went down, ridership went down. So figure that part out. You would think that when gas prices go up, people would ride the bus more, but that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is gas prices are going down, the ridership is going down a little bit. So there's a lot more influence into what makes people move or ridership go up or go down. But a lot of people want to know, it's very simple. Gas price hits $4 a gallon, people are going to crowd your buses. When it gets to $2.50 a gallon, they're going to vacate. It's not true. So we have to look at a lot of different variables. This is our funding. $33 million. If you add up our local tax money, the money we directly generate, federal money and state money. If you didn't have anything and you wanted to start a bus business like we have in Anchorage, it costs you $33 million to operate everything, to run the service that we have. This is basically what is the net cost of People Mover. People say, People Mover doesn't pay for itself, and you can create a graph like this for every mode of transportation. But what you see here is in 2014, our total net cost means how much does it cost us to operate, to stay in business for everything that we do, including sort of our overhead. Just the bus business is $18 million. 16% of it is in what we call our governmental charges, which means it's the charges that we pay to lawyers and purchasing people and contracting people, administrative, all of that kind of stuff. The direct cost, which is the green line, is really the hard numbers. It's the salaries, it's the benefits and things like that. So Anchor Rides, less overhead, if you were, it's like 5% of the total cost of Anchor Rides, but that's roughly $5 million to run the Anchor Rides business. So I got a couple more slides here, just kind of what's going on in our world in public transportation. Every year we do a service change. I share that with you guys. We make minor modifications. This year we're going to be putting a little, we're going to be modifying our service out in Eagle River a little bit. We're putting a little more service out in the Anchor Rides earlier in the day, but on balance, the service that we have today is going to be the service that we have for the next year starting the end of June. Another piece of business that we're in is our van pool. Our van pool is a contracted service. It's a 5-year contracted service. The way we've been doing van pool service for the last 30 years, it was generated when we were a CO non-attainment. It was a required SIP measure, which is share a ride, which is the van pool program. We spend money buying vans and everything else, and then we give a contractor to manage the service, do the matching. We've been really transitioning so that they're going to take it over, and we're going to use our federal funds. Instead of buying vehicles and managing the service, we're going to offer a stipend. That's basically how a van pool service works all across the country. So if you group of 13 individuals fill a van and the total cost of that van is $1,000 a month, we will then provide a stipend for that van up to 50% of the cost, or $500 a max per van. So, because what's going on is we're spending too much time running a rental car business. We're not in the rental car business, we're in the public transportation business. So we're going to be modifying the way in which we do it. Our current contract ends at the end of December. This RFP will be out this month, with it starting to notice to proceed in January. So if you have questions, I can fill in on that one. UPass, we started a pilot program with East. Every student, faculty, and staff at East High School rides People Mover the week of registration till the end of May for free. Any trip, any day of the week. This year, we are in negotiations right now, and we're working on an agreement with the school district to continue East, also do it at Bartlett and Benny Benson. So what that means is they pay us a fee. It's very much like a UPass program. So all of those students and faculty and staff use the program. It's really not to replace the yellow buses, but it helps students do a lot of things. Get to school early if they need some help, stay afterwards, practice, activities. They can take it to work, they can do what they want, and they don't have to pay. So for East High this year, we had over 40,000, almost 42,000 students that have that pass riding the bus on East. We worked with the district to pick the schools. Technology, we are now in the process of figuring out where our next generation is of technology, so we'll be working on that. Some faces, new faces, and some challenges. We're going through with a lot of major retirements in the department. Today I spent, basically our communications, customer service, and marketing is all being redone. So it's not because it was not being bad, it was bad, it's just that we've got changes. The funding, I think the only two that I want to mention this one here, the state match, probably be less, a couple $100,000 less for us this year. Glasgow Mental Health Trust, it's a grant we apply for, it's about $500,000. We applied this year and did not get it. It supports our Anchor Ride service, so we're trying to figure out how we're going to tackle that one. I think our FTA and our local resources are going to be pretty constant for us. We have a contractor on board to look at Muldoon transfer locations. We have 2 stops, Fred Meyer's and the mall out there on Muldoon at DeBar. We have Kenny Engineering looking at some alternative concepts for locations. For us, we've got figuring out where is the best location. The stops that we have were put in before Bagage Middle School and Fred Meyer's and all of that town center development was done. We should have the results of that here in about a month or so. The Downtown Transit Center. So the Downtown Transit Center is a mess. I'll just say it as simple as that. We have a lot of challenges going on at the Downtown Transit Center that we're really trying to work on. Our Transit Advisory Board is working with us to really improve that environment down there. We are tenants in that building. We do not own it. We are just like Sonny's grocery store, the pizza joint next to us, and the place selling coffee at the end. We don't control the janitorial service. We don't control the security. I mean, we pay our landlord who pays the contractor to do that. And to be quite frank, we're really not satisfied. Our transit board is really not satisfied. So yesterday, Abul Hassan, who was sitting where Steve is, my superintendent of operations, APD, the new ACDA director, Anchorage Community Development Authority, the parking authority, downtown partnership, and a couple other folks. The owner of the security office really kind of had a meeting. Progress, but I'm not so sure that we're going to be taking a different approach. The reason I put this one on here is we really need to solve this problem to up our game. And what's going on down there is not a transit problem, but it is a problem for transit. I mean, if I were a private business, I would be going out of business because that stuff is going on, is being allowed. It's a public space, so it's really a tough spot. So it's probably the #1 concern of our Transit Advisory Board. They're spending a lot of energy on it, which leads me to some upcoming projects. Until about probably 4 or 5 months ago, what's going on at the Downtown Transit Center, there's just, there's some really challenges down there. We have an RFP ready to go for Midtown, but I have it on hold. And the reason I have it on hold is, I have continuing authorization ready to put it out on the street. I got everything I need to go. But what I'm concerned about is that when I talk to property owners in Midtown, what they think is, I don't want Midtown, I don't want a transit center in Midtown because what you see going on in downtown is just going to come to my neighborhood. And that's not the point we want to deal with. I mean, if we can't address those problems in downtown, I'm going to be having the wrong conversation about a Midtown Transit Center, which is the new hub that we need to operate. So I expect it will happen this year, but under the new administration, we'll have that conversation with them. Diamond Center, we have some funding in the TIP, $2 million in 2015. We should have a design contractor underway. We had the submissions came in last week. We've got a couple proposals we'll be reviewing. We'll start construction in 2016. Really what we're doing there is right now at the Downtown Diamond Transit Center, all the buses have to load northbound. We're going to rebuild the access from Diamond so that you can load on both directions and go both directions. And it's a lot of pedestrian improvements as well. 7th and C, 650 people a day get on that bus stop across from the Federal Building, and it's a piece of crap. It's one of the oldest bus stops that we have, so we have some design money right now that we're working on, we'll have some design starting in 2015. I know DOT's got a pavement rehab overlay project coming in. If we can time it down, we'll be able to do that. Actually, I think they'll be doing it this year, but maybe next year as well. UMed Phase 4, we got some HSIP money. This is the stop in front of the library across the street from Providence. We pick up over 500 people a day there. This one here just kind of popped up on my radar a couple weeks ago. We have two 20,000-gallon diesel tanks. One of them is really, really old, and I'm told it's sitting on water. So I said we should probably get it out of the ground. So we got a design that's done. We'll be fixing those this year, and then we'll be replacing some of our anchor rides fleet. So this is really kind of a snapshot of what's going on in the bus business. Lots of activity like many departments. So if you guys have any specific questions or comments, good, bad, or indifferent,
When is the Diamond project coming through for review?
So it probably won't be until the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're going to make changes to that whole side going into the Diamond Mall as far as, are you moving signal poles?
Don't know yet. So.
Okay.
So we have, who's the assistant traffic engineer at DOT?
John.
Works for Scott.
John Knowles?
John. So he's on the review committee. and I don't know who from traffic is on the review committee, who's going to be on the selection committee. Somebody from the Diamond Center is on the review committee when we get built. We still haven't picked a contractor. Right.
On the bus delay,
Yeah,
I assume you track it by route?
we do.
Which ones are the bad ones?
And what do you do to, when you find one that's really
For no other reason, I mean, what sort of things can you?
So a couple things. We find out that the makeup of the ridership can change. We may have a route where we're picking up more wheelchairs. We schedule it, it's going to take us 52 minutes to go from point A to point B.
Right.
And we plan on what's going on. And then we have, an assisted living arrive. And we need that new delay in the extra time, or when more people ride bikes on a particular route. New businesses open up that we hadn't expected, so we make those modifications every year. So it varies, and then that's why we adjust. So there isn't, I don't think, one chronic one. Maybe the 102 out to Eagle River because more too much sport on that highway at certain times.
Lance, the Route 45, that was the Mountain View one. The transit center origination and then into Mountain View, is that kind of the routing?
Yes. Yeah.
What's the scope of the Midtown RFP? What's
So, yeah, good, thank you, Steve. The scope of the Midtown RFP is to do, it's to do a site selection of sites that would serve us for the long term. But it's also going to include some analysis of operations out of the site. So part of the team will be requirement not only to have someone that's going to help us do site selection, but it's also going to be part of the team that's going to have to be someone who says, okay, if we want to be at, I don't know, I'll just say, if we were at the archive site, what would be the operational challenges based on our existing routes in and out of there for time? Might be a great opportunity for land and development, but it's not very good for our operations. So it's going to be a team effort. We're also going to have the municipalities, we're going to have our own real estate agent help us. We're not going to pay a consultant to look at sites and then go talk to our landowner and say, that's really great that my site might be valuable for transit, but I don't want to transit on my site. We're going to do all that vetting before we give it to the contractor.
So is there, I don't even know how this works, but is there a way to measure how that particular site compares efficiency-wise? Say with the downtown transit center, you'd say we're going to be 15% more efficient for travel time?
That's kind of what we want them to do, and then when we narrow down the preferred site, we'll spend a lot more time.
Is that also including that restriction?
So that, Jamie, it's kind of the point there is, Jamie, so they look at one site, they said, you're probably going to be more in tune to a route restructure. The ideal corridor is somewhere between, basically the sweetest spot is where the Key Bank building is. It's got to be on AC and 36 because our long-range transportation plan shows that downtown, midtown, UMed, that's where the first BRT is going to be. And so we want to keep that connection. So any place, access to an arterial network, right-hand turns, boarding on the right, not on the left, a lot of those things. Okay, thanks, Greg.
You.
That was the last item on the agenda as far as informational items go. Yes. So are there any other informational items at this time?
I know.
Hold on a minute. Or do you want to do that?
I'm going to pass around Central Region's Road Construction Navigator map. I saw them and grabbed them, so it's just a reminder to everybody, as you're traveling this summer, be sure to check the latest updates on the Navigator website, especially as you are heading anywhere. There's a lot of construction going on. I believe so.
There's a lot surrounding where I live now. Dang it. All right. Are there any other informational items?
Can I I just, I will resend the doodle poll out for people to take. I think I should post this one, but I just want to get everyone to that work session on the 27th. As Vivian said, we'll be hanging out all day, make sure we get your comments in on the draft of the MTP. I'll just resend it to make sure I get everyone's times and availability.
Okay. Are there any committee comments? Go the order.
I see the bikeway design workshops on here, but doesn't say where it is on the median for the
The
back.
bikeway design shop, is that here?
Well, this is the AMATS one in the evening. And
Oh, that's.
so I'm assuming it's going to be here, Joni?
I'm sorry.
The location,
And
location of the
actually-
bikeway design workshop.
It will be here in this room right here.
And the one during the day is in this room as well.
Okay. So, and they're both June 24th, correct? So, yeah. You can come hang out here on June 24th if you want.
I'm sure it's on the top of everybody's desk.
I have it on my calendar. All right, if there's nothing else for the order, we'll adjourn this meeting at 4:11 PM.